Okay, hello there, everyone. My name's Giles. I'm the managing director at ThinkingWorks, and we're a not-for-profit organisation that specialises in helping anyone at risk of fuel poverty. What I'm here to talk about today is really how we can tackle high bills. And this is very much a flash webinar. It's a very quick whistle-stop tour of things that we can all be doing to save money and energy. What I really wanted to address first is that there's really only three main things that we can do when we're looking at tackling high bills. And the first is that we've got to maximize our income. The more money we've got coming in, that's a way that we can address these increases in our costs. We need to be able to improve heat retention. We're spending a lot of money on the heat that we're putting into our homes. We've got to look at ways that we can improve keeping that heat in. And the third is that we need to reduce our expenditure. We need to be turning on the heating less. We need to be using less energy. So I want to look at these three areas. Now, the first one of maximizing income, I'm not going to dwell much on that today. This is very much a flash webinar, and I want to look at the heat retention and expenditure in more detail. But maximizing income is really, really important. And it's worth knowing that there are millions of pounds in unclaimed benefits that are out there, and that online there are fantastic benefits calculators, and that means you can just put in your personal circumstances and details, and the calculator will work out in most cases whether or not you're entitled to any benefits, whether additional ones or new ones. So it's very much worth looking at that. And at the end of this webinar, I'll give details about where you can find onward information about that. When we're looking at improving heat retention, what we really need to look at is how we can keep more of the heat in the home through insulation and DIY measures. And reducing expenditure is really just looking at how we can be using appliances less and things we can look at in the home to basically maximize our savings. So first of all, let's look at that increasing the heat retention. The number one thing that we can do is really improve insulation. That's the key part here. The Greater London Authority has a fantastic grant scheme called Warmer Homes, and this is open to homeowners and those privately renting that have a low income and a low energy rating. And I'll come back to that in a second, but really it's what it covers, and it's looking at improving insulation homes. There is heating systems as well that are covered under the scheme, but the reason we want to look at insulation is because they're taking what's called a fabric first approach. And that means we want to look at improving the fabric of the building. Why? Because the building is just like you or I. When we go out on a winter's day, how do we keep ourselves warm? Well, we wear a thicker coat, we wear a hat on our heads, gloves and everything else. So we're looking at it keeping more of the heat in by improving our own personal insulation. And a home is no different. So this is looking at, if you imagine that wall insulation is just a heavy coat, if you imagine that loft insulation is a nice woolly hat, that is what this scheme is about. And if we can improve that, then it will really, really significantly improve the heat retention in your home. To be eligible for this grant, you do need to be either a home owner or privately renting. The low income, you need an income of 20,000 or under after deductions, and they take out your housing costs, tax, national insurance, and any council tax costs. So they can look at a calculation to see whether or not you're eligible. And the other side of that is you need to have a reasonably low energy rating of D or worse. These are done on what's called an EPC, an Energy Performance Certificate. And what the D means is very much the energy rating of your home. It's a bit like being at school, where A is fabulous and G is terrible. And in this, a D, it's in the middle, but we need homes to be better. We want to be moving up the table at Bs to try and get us to that level where we're really keeping a lot more of the heat in. At the end of the session, I'll also explain where you can go to find out more details about the Warmer Homes grant. But if it's something that you might be eligible for, potentially eligible for, there is no better thing that you can do than improve the insulation in your home. But the Warmer Homes grant, it's not going to happen tomorrow. What can we do immediately to try and keep more of that heat in? And this is where we need to look at some DIY measures. These are things, small things that we can do, but that collectively do make a big difference. So these are things like draft proofing, controlling the ventilation in our homes, and also putting in small measures like radiator reflector panels. At the bottom of this slide, there's a picture of these. I've got a letterbox draft excluder, and that's something you can put on to stop those drafts. There's a sliding ventilation panel. I have one of these myself. I've got a little box room with an air brick in it, and that air brick was just letting air in. Didn't matter, winter, summer. There's no control over that cold air coming in. Home does need to breathe. It's got to be able to deal with moisture from breathing, cooking, bathing, and washing. But you do really want to have control over that ventilation. And the little white panel that you can see in the middle on this slide itself has a slider, so it fits over the air brick, and you can slide it one way, allows the air in, slide it the other, and it blocks that air. So it's fantastic for times when it's really, really cold, and we can keep more of that heat in the room, but also that I can open it up and allow fresh air in as well, which is much needed. We've also got the radiator reflector panels. These radiator, by its name, it's radiating its heat. It comes out in all directions. And if it's on an outside wall, the cold of that wall, if it's single brick, is drawing that heat out. So having the radiator reflector panel in there reflects heat back into the room and keeps more of that expensive heat where you want it. The main thing is with DIY is you really want to trust your fingers. Your fingers are very, very sensitive to feeling drafts. And it comes to the autumn, and as soon as it starts to get cold, I'm going around and feeling around windows, doors. This can be things like chimney stacks, anywhere. Your fingers will pick up if there is a draft. And then you have to look at ways that you can either put in a temporary solution to stop those drafts or something more permanent. For example, if you've got single glazed sash windows and there's lots of air coming through, and you want something that's a quick and cheap fix, you can take something like white tack, buy a few packs of that cheaply, and you can put it in to the sash windows, blocking those drafts during the winter, taking it out in the summer to make sure you've got that much needed ventilation. But do trust your fingers. Now, when we're looking at reducing expenditure, we're looking at how we've got to sort of change our behaviors. And what I really want to crystallize in this bit is where to look. Anything that you are using less in terms of appliances and other things in your home will make savings. But it's important to know where the really, really big savings are going to be. And that is by following the golden rule, which is if it gets hot, it is costing you a lot of money. The caveat to that is your fridge freezers, they're getting cold and cool, but they still also do use a lot of juice. But I really want to emphasize this. And so I've put this example up here to show the difference between something that just uses a motor and something that has a heating element. So here we've got the fan, 50 watts of energy the fan is using to make that motor go around. We add a heating element to the fan heater and it leaps from 50 watts to 2000 watts. It's a huge increase just by sticking a heating element in front of it. And the reason this is important is because we get calls into us at Thinking Works going, well, look, I want to save money and energy. Should I, at the end of every day, unplug everything? TV, kettle, whatever. I'll unplug it all at the wall. That'll give me my savings. And the answer is it will save you a little bit, but it will not save you anything like what it will save you if you can cut down use of anything that is getting hot. And you can see that just in the maths of the fan being 50 watts and the fan heater being 2000. So what are the key areas that we can look at? Well, these are the things I want to look at now. So the first one is the heating. This is the big cost for everyone at the moment. If you can either turn the thermostat down by a couple of degrees or by having the heating off, you will make massive savings. However, there are health implications in this, and it's very, very important to say that the advice in this is aimed at healthy adults. If you've got a health condition that's exacerbated by the cold, this is not going to be for you, or it may not be for you. If in any circumstance, and I would always say with these things, it's all about experimentation. You can try things and see if they work out. If there's anything like you're turning off the heating to save money, but it's impacting on your health, that is a problem. You can't do that. But there are ways that you can turn the heating off and keep yourself warm. And that's the key thing. It's our our own body temperature that's the thing that needs to keep warm. Your home is a lot more tolerant. That can be cooler, but you yourself needs to stay warm. So how do we do this? Well, you can do this with extra layers. This is base layers, extra clothes. At the moment, I'm wearing two jumpers on top of a thermal underlayer. So that's something that I'm doing to keep the heat in for me. But I also have a heated gilet, uses a battery pack. It's 10 watts. So fan heater, 2000 watts, heated gilet, 10. So it's very, very cost effective to have. It's got a heating element in it. As you can see, this little orange bit down there in the picture at the bottom of the slide. And it goes on and keeps me nice and toasty when it's cold. Similarly, you can also have hot water bottles, blankets over, and things around yourself. But any time that you can remain warm with the heating off will give you probably some of the biggest savings that you can make. So the next one is in washing, and predominantly really in drying. So the clothes are wet. How do we use the tumble dryer less? So a tumble dryer, much like the fan heater, average one is 2000 watts. So it's a big energy user. So what can we do? So once you've finished your washing, you can do an extra spin cycle. Again, it's just a motor. Your washing machine, much like the fan, it's just a motor. It doesn't really cost much for that motor to go around. It's the heating bit that's the expensive bit. I split my load. So I take half of it and put it in the basket and just spin half at a time. Why do I do that? Because the more space that your washing has to bash and to be tumbled around in the drum, the more moisture that will come out of it. So that when you're taking your clothes out, they're already a good way along the way of getting dry. I put these on drying racks, and those drying racks, I use them because they're movable. And the reason movable is important is because I can essentially move wherever the natural heat from the sun is going. If it happens to be warm outside, it's nice today, drying rack can go outside. You can get the heat from the sun. If the weather changes, I haven't got to mess around with trying to get clothes down from a clothesline. I just pick up the rack and it goes inside. The sun where I am passes over the mid-terrace house in the day, so I can move them at the front in the morning in the living room, and then they can go at the back in the afternoon to get that drying. And I don't have a tumble dryer, and this has worked perfectly fine. I do have one of these electric drying racks that's down the bottom. In reality, I only use it to finish off drying clothes, because I find that the sun is actually much better than that rack. But if it comes that I need something dry and it's still that little bit damp, I can put it on. And this one runs at 220 watts as opposed to a 2000 watt tumble dryer. So very good at doing off the finishing of drying. And the next one is cooking. Very popular at the moment. I'm sure we've all heard of them. The air fryer. Is it good? I think it's important again to always look at the wattages of these things and how much time they're on, and that's the key part of the calculation. Average oven, much like your tumble dryer and your fan heater, it's around 2000 watts. Average air fryer is 1000 watts, but you can even see down there the capacity of the air fryer is much smaller than a big oven, and this really comes down to how big are the meals that you're cooking. If you were cooking for a large family, then an oven can be very cost effective. But if you like it, and I've been guilty of it, putting 3 fish fingers in the oven, it's a very expensive way of doing your fish fingers. It will be much cheaper if you do put them in an air fryer. Similarly, microwaves are a really fantastic way of saving money, and our slow cookers. You can always start food in things like a microwave and finish it in an oven for taste. Take a jacket potato. It would need at least an hour in an oven, but you can put it for 5 minutes in a microwave and then finish it off under a grill, and then you get the flavor that you want from something that's been oven baked, but in a fraction of the time. So these are all really good ways of saving. The next one is in bathing, and this sometimes is really overlooked in energy. But let's look at a bath first. So the average bath, 80 liters of water. So, when you're looking at visualizing this, a large bottle of water is a 1 liter bottle of water. So it's 80 of these in your bath. Now, to get that water at a nice warm temperature is a lot of money and uses a lot of energy to do so. Do you need your bath filled up to the top? Personally, I don't think so. I think you can take off a lot from there. And again, it's experimentation. You can try by taking off a few centimeters and a few more, and gradually find what still you still feel you're getting the nice part of having a bath. It's not impeding on that, but you're heating up less volume of water, and you're making really significant savings. The lower the depth, the better. And this is not just with baths. Showers cost a lot. I had an electric shower in the property where I was renting before, and it's called the Triton 9000. And that 9000 relates to the amount of watts it was. So a 9,000 watt unit. So it's more than 4 times the power of a fan heater is running away to get that shower hot water. Electric showers are huge energy users. It's not to say that gas ones aren't, they are as well. But the reason I use this is because we've been looking at different appliances and their wattage. And I think that it just really crystallizes just how much energy goes into heating water for bathing. So shorter showers, lower depth of baths, these are ways that you're going to save. If you are going to spend a little bit of money and want to invest money and think, well, okay, what's going to give me the best bang for my buck? The best really is with LED lighting. It's very cost effective and has what's called a short payback period. So this is the amount of time it takes for the savings you get from something to pay for the item. And in this case, LED bulbs are now pretty cheap, and they can use up to 10 times less energy. As an example, a friend of mine had their kitchen done, and they were showing me the lovely kitchen, and there's 10 50-watt little spotlight halogen lights in there. So that's 10 50-watt bulbs, 500 watts of electricity being used there. But LEDs, the comparable LED is only 5 watts. So you can swap your 500 watts for 50 watts just by changing those LEDs. And it only takes a matter of months, and it's paid for those LEDs outright. And it's a very cost-effective way of saving. If you've got anything other than LED lights in your home, I would suggest changing them, because they're a really cost-effective way of making some big savings. And the last one is your fridges and freezers. So this is the side of it where cooling things costs a lot of money. Now, your fridge and freezer is not on all the time. It's got a thermostat in it. And the way that it's working is that your fridge and freezer gets the unit down to the temperature that you have set it at. And then it only comes on when it's getting warmer than that. So the longer that it's staying cool and frozen, in the case of the freezer, the less the thermostat is coming on and the more that you're saving. So how can you make it stay cooler for longer? The way the units work is that to keep air cooler is really quite hard. It's harder to keep that air cooler, and your thermostat will come on more. What you can do is, if you've got empty spaces in your freezer particularly, is that you can fill them with things like a bottle of water. That bottle of water will freeze and become a block of ice. That ice will retain the cold much better than air. And if that's in there, or for instance, a loaf of bread that you keep for emergencies, big volume, goes in there, becomes this big block of ice. That's keeping your freezer nice and cold, and it will mean that it stays colder for longer, and your thermostat will come on less. And these will have really significant savings for you over the long term. So it's worth knowing. If you've got empty spaces in your freezer, fill them up as best you can. Bottles of water and bread, crumpets, whatever you like, something like that, and it will be a very good way of saving. So very much that is my whistle-stop tour of looking at the key areas that you can look at to save money and energy. But what are the next steps? Where can you find out more? So the Mayor of London, with the Energy Saving Trust, have a new advice service, Energy Advice for London, which is fantastic and has a huge wealth of resources online. Down at the bottom of this slide at energyadvice.london, you can visit that. There's a room-by-room home checker with some fantastic tips and ideas of ways to save, along with links to numerous other resources and other parts that are on the Mayor's website, which look at helping with the cost of living, including the benefits calculators and the Mayor of London's Warmer Homes programme. You can also search for that separately by putting into your search engine Warmer Homes London, and that can give you more information about the grant. So I do hope you found this flash webinar useful today, and there's been some tips and ideas in there that you'll take home and try for yourself. But what I would 100% say is that it's all about experimentation. Try and see what you can do, and hopefully we can all save some money and energy this winter. Thanks for your time today.